Good day everyone, and welcome to the GTAC Tech Talk webinar on AutoVu Mobile System Configuration in Security Center. Thanks for attending today. My name is Derek Schaefer. I'm a Technical Training e-Content Specialist with Genetec, and I'll be your host for the webinar today. We also have some of the members of the Genetec Technical Assistance Center standing by who are assisting with the webinar questions and answers. Our first GTAC expert is Sean White, who is one of our technical support engineers with the AutoVu team. And we also have Scott McFall with us today to help with questions as well. Scott is an e-content specialist with the GTAC. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can just type them in the question box of the GoToWebinar console, and one of us will get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. In case we need to verify any information for your question, we'll make a note of it and we'll get back to you via email as soon as we have an answer for you. All the questions and answers from the webinar will be posted on the GTAC Tech Talk section of the Genetec Technical Assistance Portal forums about a day or two after the webinar has finished. So if you have any additional questions or comments on the webinar or on the GTAC Tech Talk webinar series in general, you can post them in this section of the GTAP forum as well. We're also going to have links to the recorded video and the streaming video in here, and the PDF version of the slides for today's presentation. All the videos of the previous webinars can be found by going to the resources section of the GTAP, and then we go to videos, and then take a look under GTAC Tech Talk. Now there's two ways that you can view the videos. You can either stream them in a browsing window by clicking on this icon right here, or you can download a zipped Windows media file by clicking on the second icon right here. If you'd like to receive emails concerning the latest additions to the Genetec Technical Assistance Portal, you can log on to the GTAP, go into the My Account section, and go under Email and Notifications. From the notification section down here, you can check the boxes of the subjects you're interested in and select how often you'd like to receive an email when there have been additions to these sections. To put a checkbox next to a subject, the frequency is going to have to be set to daily or weekly. If you have it set to never, then the checkboxes here will be grayed out. You can also edit your subscription to our two Genetec newsletters in the email subscription section from the same page. And of course, don't forget to hit the submit button to save your changes. Alright, so before we get into the webinar, I just want to cover some goals and expectations for the presentation today. Now first of all, this is going to be a very brief overview of the subject material. You're going to hear me refer to the AutoVu handbook a lot because there is a lot of detailed information in there, and when you're setting up a system, you really want to have that available somewhere. The scope of the subject is very large, so we're going to be looking at the basics today. If you're going to be installing mobile AutoVu systems, you'll still need to attend the AutoVu mobile training course to get all the information that you're going to need. This webinar today is more to give you an idea of what you'll need to do, and you can also use it as a refresher before setting up a system if you haven't taken a look at one in a while, or it's been a while since your training. Now we've gathered some of the top support issues from our AutoVu support team, and we'll be presenting those at the end of the webinar as well. Now, one thing I do want to stress here is that caution should be used when configuring your AutoVu system or making any changes. So if you do have any doubts about what a particular feature does, please feel free to reach out to our support team for any clarification. Taking a look at the agenda, the first thing we're going to go over is a little introduction to the mobile AutoVu system and what it can do. We're going to move on to some pre-installation steps you should be aware of before starting. And then take a look at the actual hardware installation itself. Now there's a lot to do here if you're installing it on a vehicle, so we're just going to talk about some of the basic wiring and how things are connected. The mobile training course will give you a more detail-oriented view on that, on the actual wiring and the vehicle installation. The next step is to install the Patroller software on the mobile PC that's inside the vehicle. And between these two steps here, there should be the step of installing Security Center, but we're going to skip that just to, for the sake of time, obviously, and to because there are other resources out there for installing Security Center. And we're going to move on to configuring the LPR Manager, which is inside Security Center from there. The last step is getting the Sharp camera system set up and recognized by the patroller, and any changes we need to make on the patroller itself. Now finally, as I mentioned, we have our support tips and how to troubleshoot any common issues that we've seen. Now I just want to point out something new we're doing lately, which is keeping a table of contents on the side of the slides here. So if you need to review the video for a particular subject, or you get interrupted while you're watching today and aren't sure where we are in the presentation, just take a look on the side here and it'll have the indicator on which section we're in at the moment. So before we go into a detailed look of setting up the AutoVu mobile system, let's take a brief look at what it is, what it can do, and what types of hardware and systems that we have available. In the last webinar, we took a look at a fixed AutoVu system where the cameras are stationary and connect directly to a Security Center system. But in today's webinar, we're going to be looking at a mobile AutoVu system, which is usually mounted on some kind of vehicle that drives around and checks plates as it goes. Now, instead of reporting the plates directly to the Security Center system, the Sharp cameras send the process plates to the patroller application, which is running on a laptop or other mobile PC inside the vehicle. The patroller checks to see if the vehicle is in violation and can notify the driver if it is. At the end of the driver's shift, the vehicle can automatically offload the data it read to the Security Center server, or you can do this process manually using a USB key as well. There are two types of Sharp camera systems that we can use to detect plates. The first ones are standalone Sharp units, which contain the LPR camera for reading plates, a context camera for seeing the environment around the plate, an illumination board for better visibility, and an onboard computer to process the images that are coming in. We also have a version of this Sharp that is only the processing unit, with the two ports on the front, which can support NTSC or PAL cameras. So you see, basically it's the same thing, we're just missing those cameras and the illumination board there. Now this model is called the Sharp EX for external, but this type of unit is not typically used much for mobile deployments. The second type of Sharp system is the Sharp X camera system, which has the Sharp cameras here, as well as a processing unit, which is commonly called a trunk unit. Now the difference here is that the Sharp cameras are used for gathering the images, and the processing unit is used to find the plates that are in the images that are returned from the cameras. So it's basically like separating the two halves of a Sharp here. Now this is the most common system used for AutoVu Mobile, as the cameras are some of the smallest in the industry and are really much less obvious when mounted on a vehicle than the traditional Sharps. Now the processing unit for a Sharp X system can be ordered with one or two single board controllers, and each controller can be ordered with the ability to handle one or two cameras, which we call LPR channels here. Now the number of cameras and the performance also depends on the type of Sharp camera, as the XGA model takes more image processing power due to the higher resolution. So if you have any questions on which one you should be choosing in terms of the camera configuration on your vehicle, you can just talk to your sales representative and they can help you choose the right one for your intended use. Just taking a look at the differences between the two here. Both systems use a VGA resolution for the context camera, and both can be ordered with either a VGA or XGA resolution LPR camera. Now note just that the imaging here is slightly different for the Sharp X, and the XGA LPR camera actually returns an image size of 1024 by 946 as opposed to the traditional 1024 by 768, so the The image is slightly larger in the Sharp X XGA camera. Now both of these systems can be ordered with various illumination boards, going from visible amber light to infrared. And there are also many different types of camera lenses that are available, and those should be selected based on the distance from the camera to the plates that you're trying to read. So if you have a lens with a lower focal length, which is measured in millimeters here, these should be used for cameras that are close to any plates that they're reading. So if the plates are being read at a greater distance, you'd want to get a lens with a greater focal length. Now there are four main uses for a mobile AutoVu system, which will just showing the license here because each one is licensable. Now we're just going to look at the general setup for today. We're not going to get into the specifics for each, but they are good to know, especially if you're planning out a system. Now the most basic use is for law enforcement, where the AutoVu system searches for vehicles belonging to scofflaws, stolen vehicles, vehicles involved in an Amber Alert, or any other vehicle that is on a hot list. Now the next two uses are for parking, either city parking enforcement or university parking. Now parking involves permits to say if a vehicle is allowed to park in a particular zone, and overtime rules to dictate how long a vehicle can stay in one zone or spot. As we can see here, we use wheel imaging cameras to check if the vehicle has moved from its current location. City parking can use overtime rules only, permit lists only, or it can use a combination of the two. Now we take a look at university parking. You can also apply restrictions on the permits, so they're only applicable to certain locations at certain times. Now unlike the city parking system, we cannot enforce both overtime rules and permit lists at the same time, and we can't use wheel imaging cameras at the moment as well. We can use the context image from the LPR camera to verify the location of the vehicle instead. Now the last use for a mobile AutoVu system is mobile license plate inventory, which you'll see abbreviated sometimes as MLPI. This is used to keep track of vehicles that are kept in a lot, including how long they've been there and their location within the lot as well. You can run reports on this, and the lots can be created within the system in quite a bit of detail based on the number of spaces in each row. So it doesn't have to be a traditional grid. It doesn't have to be anything that's very rigid. So you can say in different rows you can specify a different number of spots for each one. Okay, so before going into the actual installation and setup, I want to just take a look at a few things you have to do. This is typically even before you're ordering the system. So the first thing you'll need to do before ordering your system is a site survey. So this is used basically to determine the hardware that needs to be ordered based on the environment the system will be used in, and the lens type that you're going to need based on the distance from the plates to the Sharp cameras. So for example, if we were mounting the cameras on a police car like we have here, and that's going to be looking for vehicles on a highway, we may want a lens that would be able to see plates at around 40 feet away, so we'd use a 25mm lens. For the 25mm lens, we know it has an in-focus range of 31.5 to 48.5 feet. So anything outside of this range is not going to be in focus, so that's why this is critical to know how much in focus range we have for each type of lens. Now for a system mounted on a street cleaner, this isn't a fire truck, it's a street cleaner, work with me here. We wouldn't want to use the same lens since the cars here are much closer, and we have the camera pointed at a different angle, so the view of the plate is not obstructed by the vehicles before and behind it. So in our example here, the plates are about 14 feet away, so we'd want to use a 12mm lens because it's got an in-focus range of 10 to 22 feet. Now really, like I mentioned, we want to make sure that the plates pass within the optimal focus area, which we do have diagrams for each lens, and each one has the focus range. So again, contact your sales representative and they can help you out with that. The other thing that does need to be taken into account here is lighting and plate reflectivity, and that's going to basically determine which illumination board you choose for the cameras as well. Like I mentioned, if you need any help with the site survey, we've got people available. Just to give the sales team a call and they can help you out with that. Now, one important thing I want to point out is that there's a good list of safety precautions and warnings in the AutoVu handbook. Now, particularly since we're dealing with wiring the hardware to the electrical system of a vehicle, we need to be very careful when we're doing this so we don't cause any harm to ourselves or, of course, damage the equipment as well. Now, we also need to make sure the installation process doesn't compromise any of the safety systems in the vehicle, such as the airbag, or cause any problems with the normal safe operation of the vehicle. So you got to make sure all the cables are out of the way and not getting in the way of the steering wheel or anything like that. Now, if you are unfamiliar with making any changes to your vehicle and the electrical system, it would probably be best to seek the help of an automotive professional for that. Now, the last pre-install step I want to take a look at are setting up the firewalls. Now, in most cases, we're going to be transferring information from the controller to the security center system and vice versa over a wireless network. So the controller has a series of ports that are used, as well as the LPR Manager. We've got both of them up here. So this is the security center side. These are the ports for the LPR Manager. And these are the list of ports for the controller. You can find these in the administrator guide for the security center, and these ones you can find in the AutoVu handbook. Now, we need to make sure all these ports are unblocked and free to send information over the network, and basically any firewalls in place on the network or anywhere in between the two sources of information will have to have the ports open, or at least keep the proper exception rules configured. Alright, so let's take a look at the hardware we need to install first. We're going to take a look at an advanced setup using the standalone Sharp cameras, and I'll point out the components that may not be necessary for a simple configuration. We'll take a quick look at the Sharp X configuration after that, which is similar, but the components do change slightly there. Okay, so taking a look at the components and how they're connected, the basic hub of the Sharp system is the breakout box here. This is both the front and back view of it. It's one unit here. So basically this unit is connected to the battery of the vehicle, and as well as the ignition, and it must be grounded as well. Now, we want to make sure the breakout box is installed somewhere secure with lots of room for the heatsink fins, and we also want to make sure that the wires will be protected as well. Now, obviously the best place for this would be in the trunk or somewhere else out of direct sunlight. The ports on the breakout box are used to connect the Sharp cameras, the wheel imaging cameras that are used for city parking enforcement, and it connects to the mobile PC inside the vehicle as well. In a basic system, the mobile PC is also connected to the GPS using one of the USB ports. But in an advanced system where we need more accurate geographic coordinates than the standard GPS can provide, such as when we're looking at city parking enforcement with wheel imaging, we would need to use a navigation box, which we usually just call a nav box. Now, when we're using the nav box, the GPS is plugged directly into the nav box instead of going to the mobile PC. The GPS antenna should be located somewhere with a clear view of the sky to get the best signal possible, so that's preferably on the roof of the vehicle, somewhere near the Sharp cameras. Now, the nav box also connects to the mobile PC in the vehicle using a USB cable, but we do need to make sure that the cable length is less than 15 feet. Now, like the breakout box that we were looking at, we need to make sure the nav box is installed somewhere out of direct sunlight, and you'll need to make sure that the box is installed on a flat level surface and cannot be moved by any other objects around it. You might see some performance issues if the nav box does get jostled at all in the trunk. Now the nav box is also connected to the vehicle's odometer to check the ignition and the reverse signals, and it gets the speed from the odometer as well. The nav box does have a gyroscope, and it can detect direction changes, which is basically why it's important to keep it stable and level and not getting hit by anything in the trunk or wherever it's stored. For the actual wiring, follow the AutoVu connecting the Sharp camera guide that comes with the camera to connect the Sharp cameras to the breakout box, and make sure the cable connection at the Sharp camera is sealed and watertight as well. Now the Sharp camera can be hard mounted on the vehicle, or there's a removable option as well. So this is the hard mounted option here. If the vehicle will be driven at moderate to high speeds, we do require that the unit is hard mounted on the vehicle. This is the removable magnetic mount that we have available as well, with a power connector from the breakout box that plugs directly into the cigarette lighter of the vehicle, which makes the transportability much easier. Now, due to that, only a single Sharp system should be used on vehicles that where you are using this removable option. Now, if you need any more details on attaching the hard-mounted Sharp and any recommendations, just take a look in the handbook, and they've got more detailed information there. Now, the handbook also has the wiring connections you'll need to know for the nav box as well. We need to make sure the nav box power is not connected directly to the battery, otherwise it will be on all the time and it will drain your battery. And it needs to be controlled by the ignition, basically like the rest of the system. Now when we're looking at a mobile SharpX system, things are a little different. Now we don't use a breakout box with the SharpX system because we do have the processing unit here that handles all the connections for the SharpX cameras. It also handles the connections for the power system, the portable PC, and the wheel imaging cameras as well. Now we do need to use a nav box with the SharpX system if we're doing city parking enforcement using wheel imaging cameras, since we do need that, that more accurate location data than the GPS alone can provide. Similar to the standalone Sharp system that we just looked at, the nav box connects to the portable PC that's in the vehicle, and we still can have a limit on the USB cable of 15 feet. Now just follow the same guidelines as before, making sure the nav box is in a flat, stable location and not in direct sunlight. And taking a look at the power connections to the processing unit, they are similar, as we have a connection to the battery, the ground wire, and the connection to the ignition here as well. Now once again, wherever you put the unit, such as in the trunk, make sure that the cable connections are protected and won't be damaged. Make sure the unit's not in direct sunlight, and that the heatsink fins on top here are clear and unobstructed, so it gets lots of fresh air. Now when we're connecting the cameras, you just need to take a look in the guide that's included with the unit, called the AutoVu Connecting the Sharp Camera guide, and you can see the full wiring information. This is just a small part of it here on the separating the cable and creating your RJ45 plug. Now we'll have two connections on the processing unit per SharpX camera, one for the network using an RJ45 plug, and another for the power going to the unit. Now if you're going to be using wheel imaging cameras, these connect on the right side of the unit here, and we just need to basically follow the same instructions in the guide for hard mounting the SharpX cameras and installing the wheel imaging cameras as well. We're going to move on to the software installation and configuration now, and the first step would be to install the Security Center system, as I mentioned previously, if you don't have one that's up and running already. So there are a lot of install guides, documentation, and we even have some Tech Talk videos out there for this part. so I'm going to skip it for the sake of time. Now, if you have just added the AutoVu component to your Security Center license, make sure you update the server admin with a new license file, which you can download from the GTAP or Genetec Technical Assistance portal. So the first component we're going to look at is the patroller, which is the program running on the laptop or other portable PC that's inside the vehicle. The actual installation of the patroller software is fairly straightforward, but there are a few steps that might need some clarification. So first of all, we need to run the setup.exe as an administrator from the installation package. And then there's a few standard steps after that where you select the installation language of the software, and install any missing prerequisite software as well. After choosing the patroller interface language and the installation folder, it'll ask you which components to install. Most of the time we just put everything there. It's also going to ask which of the 4 types of usage modes you wish to use. So there's a distinction here between city parking and city parking with wheel imaging, so make sure you pick the right one if you are doing city parking there. And then it's going to ask you if you wish to install maps or not. So if your specific use will not require the use of a map, such as if you're doing parking inventory, or if you're only going to be searching for stolen vehicles on highways, you can choose not to install this option. Next, it will ask you which database to use. So you can either use the existing one that's already been installed on the system, if you have one there, or you can choose to install a new database server. Now this will install SQL Server 2008 Express and create a default database called SQL Express. Now this database in the Express version has a 10 gigabyte size limit. So if you find that you're running out of space to record the reads and hits coming in from the cameras, you might have to upgrade to a full version of SQL to get more space. We're going to talk about that a little bit more later on in the tips and troubleshooting section, and one other place as well. So after selecting the database, we need to choose the database server authentication method. So we can use Windows authentication only, or we can use a mixed mode, which uses SQL Server credentials and Windows authentication. Now the mixed mode here is preferred since using Windows authentication requires a user to be an administrator. If you use the mixed mode, it will ask you for the login name and password like we have here. This is going to be used for the patroller application to access the database. Now one thing as well I just want to mention in terms of the mapping is that it also is a licensed option. So if you aren't getting prompted for it, take a look at your license and see if you do have mapping in there. The last step is to set up the firewall rules. So it's going to ask you if it would like you to, or if you would like it to set up the rules for you there. So you can do this manually later on if you want, or you can just check it here and hit next, and it's going to create the rules for you. If you are running an antivirus program on the vehicle's PC, you're going to need to add some applications to the safe list. We've got them listed here for your convenience. They are the patroller.exe, the patroller config tool, the security desk, the Genetec server, and the config tool. Now if you are using maps, if you have that license and set up, you can use the default bnomad maps that are sent to you when your license is created. So basically we just need to unzip the file that's sent and place the bnomad folder in your mobile client folder on the mobile PC. So you'll find that you have it installed here. It's under Program Files x86, Genetec AutoVu 5.2, and you'll have that's your default folder there, your mobile client. And just make sure you copy the bnomad folder under there. Now you should also have received a .glic license file with the AutoVu license. So you just need to copy that file into the bnomad folder as well. The last step to set that up is just run the controller config tool that was in the default folder there, and from the navigation section here, just go to the map section, and from the drop down here, choose bnomad as the mapping type. Just hit apply and you're good to go, and the bnomad map of your region will be loaded when you start the patroller application. Alright, the next step is to take a look at the LPR Manager roles we'll need to use in Security Center. If you do have the AutoVu component in your Security Center license, you should have an LPR Manager role created by default. If you want different patrollers to have different retention periods, if you want different hot list or permit associations, or basically other general settings, depending on which unit you're using, you're going to have to create new LPR managers for each one. So you can do that from the LPR task by clicking on the Add an Entity button on the bottom left, and then selecting LPR Manager. Or basically you can do the same thing from the roles view of the system task. Just create a new LPR Manager role. Now from here it'll prompt you to select the server that the role is running on, as well as going to ask for the database server it will be using and the database name. Now this, if you have other LPR managers running on the system, it would be a good idea to make this unique, or you should make it unique. And as well, give it a unique discovery port and listening port as well, as this is basically going to determine which of your fixed sharp units and mobile patroller applications connect to this particular LPR manager role that you're creating. Now just need to choose a unique name for the role. After that, it's pretty standard. Choose the partition to use, and pretty much you'll be all set from there. It'll create the new LPR Manager role. So let's take a look at the LPR Manager properties and what needs to be set up in there. Now from the general settings section here, we need to set up a unique root folder for each LPR Manager. And we need to set the user group that will be allowed to log into Patroller application as well. This is set up right here. Now below that are the retention periods. Now this is particularly important as the database will not clear out old records to make room for the new ones. So basically here, if you've got your retention set too high, particularly for your read retentions here, basically it's going to fill up the database, and it's just going to stop. It's not going to accept any more information until the old data that's in the database has expired and been cleared out after its retention time. So an average mobile read is using wheel imaging is around 84 kilobytes. So using the database size here, which is that's 10 gigabytes converted into kilobytes there. That's the default SQL Server Express 2008. From here you can calculate how many days of retention you can have based on the number of reads that you're getting coming in per day. So from here, just round that number down, because obviously if you round it up, you're going to hit the limit at some point. So just make sure that you do have some space available in your SQL database. Now next, if you ever need to change or verify the listening port or the discovery port for the LPR Manager role, you can find that in the live section here. So if you need to add a patroller to one of your LPR managers, and you need to figure out which listening port to configure or the discovery port for the patroller, you just go into the live section and you can see which one it is that you need to set it to. Now we're going to take a look at the file association section just briefly here. This is where we set up the hot lists and the permit list that the LPR manager will use and will send to the patrollers. So once we have these set up, the hot lists and the permit lists, you can go back in here and select the ones to use for this particular LPR manager. So if you have an LPR manager set up that's going to be used for your vehicles that are searching for stolen vehicles, you would have this checked. If you have another vehicle that's not going to be checking for stolen vehicles, that's only going to be doing parking, you would have a second LPR manager set up, and you would uncheck this hot list and you would only use permits, for instance. Okay, the last place to look at to see if we need to make any changes is the plate filtering section right here. Now from here we need to select what kind of character set we're expecting to see on the plates, such as Latin, or we can have Japanese characters, and basically what to do with a plate record that contains characters that are not in this selected character set. So we can either choose to modify the record, which will drop the unrecognized character, or we can choose just to remove the record completely. So if it sees any characters that are not in there, it just says, okay, I don't know what that plate is, and it gets rid of the record totally. Now once you do have the LPR manager configured, it will look for any patrollers on the listening port that you configured, and it's going to show them in Security Center. It's going to add them automatically under the relevant LPR manager. And that's pretty much it for the basics of the LPR manager. Now if you do need any more information on any of the other options, take a look in the handbook, and there's a lot more details and setup and configuration steps there. Alright, so the last thing we have to do with the hardware is to get the Sharp camera system configured and working with your in-vehicle patroller that's running. And we also want to make sure the patroller can connect to Security Center. So we're going to start with looking at the Sharp cameras and getting them to connect to the patroller. The first thing we want to do is log into the Sharp portal, and we want to go to the Live Feed tab here, and we just want to make sure that the cameras are working. So this, we just had it set up in the office here, so I just chose the context camera. I could see an image. I could also choose an LPR camera from here and make sure that it is actually reading plates and what kind of information we're getting back from it. Now from the configuration tab, there's a few things we have to set up from there. So the first thing is the network settings. So we need to set that to either DHCP or static. Static is the default, and that is generally recommended in most situations. After that, we want to take a look at the camera settings. Now the settings that are listed here will be based on the model of the unit that you have. So this was a generic Sharp that we were using here, so we had the option to capture high definition context images. But there are other images based on the type. So for the Sharp X, we do have quite a few different options here, including the fact that you do have you can have more than one controller on the Sharp X. So we'll show you interfaces 1 and 2, and you can choose to switch over and see interfaces 3 and 4 on your second single board controller as well, if you need to. Taking a look at the analytics section, this is pretty important. We need to make sure that we're using the correct context here, which is based on the location that the plates are from. So this basically tells the camera what to expect in terms of the plate properties, including background images and the type of reflective paint that's used on the plates. So really this is important to get good reads. You need to make sure it's got the right context. Now there are general contexts available in there as well, such as we just have US selected here. Now this is good in case you're reading plates from multiple nearby states or multiple regions, so that way it's going to take a general kind of approach to it. Below that here we have our read strategy, and we choose whether we want to look for basically fast moving vehicles or slow moving vehicles. So what we're expecting to see from the speed of the plates going by, is what we're selecting here. Now this really depends on the type of vehicle the camera is mounted on, but a good strategy would be to set it to fast moving to test it, and you can change it to slow moving if you're seeing too many misread plates or duplicate plates coming in. Obviously this is depending on the context as well. If we have the police officer on the highway and we are actually looking at plates in oncoming lanes as well, we would want the read strategy to be a fast moving vehicle. On our street sweepers, since we know it's not going to be going past those cars very quickly, you would put that to slow moving by default and see what comes in. But again, it's something you may have to play around with it to see which one works best for your particular situation. Now, taking a look under the extension section here, we need to make sure it's set to patroller. So either auto, like we have here, for recent versions of Security Center, or you can actually set it to a particular version if you're using an older version of the patroller application. Below that, we also need to set the discovery port, and that's basically what we're using for the patroller to find the sharp camera. Now this is one camera we set up here. If you have a vehicle with multiple cameras, you could have up to 6 on a vehicle if you need to. Make sure you do the same thing on all the sharp cameras, connect to their portal, set them up the proper configuration. Now on a Sharp X system, we mentioned that we could have multiple cameras connected to one controller, and we'll have each controller will have an independent Sharp portal. And must be configured each one on its own. You can switch between the two. Now the next step after this is to add the cameras to our patroller and make sure that the patroller can connect to Security Center. So to do this, we run the patroller config tool application, which is found in the mobile client folder, as we mentioned. That's in the Genetec AutoVu 5.2 installation folder. Now the first thing we're going to look at, we're going to go to the camera section here, and this is where we can auto detect the sharp cameras, or we can add them manually from here as well. So to auto detect them, we want to make sure that the discovery port is set to the same as what we had configured in the extension section of the camera that we just looked at. And then from here we just need to click on the Start Discovery button right here, and the patroller will add all the units that it finds to the list of units right here. So in this case, we only had one unit that it found here. This is a Sharp X system. So basically from here, from the list here, we need to also set up where the camera is located on the vehicle. So basically we're telling the patroller how it's mounted so it can keep track of things properly. So to do that, we select the unit, we click on the edit button down here on the bottom of the list, and we have our cameras here. So on our Sharp X here, we do have 2 cameras connected. And then from here we use the drop down menu to select where on the vehicle it's mounted. So these 2 cameras are mounted on the front right and the front left of the vehicle. Now if you do need to manually add a unit, you can click on the create button on the bottom here, and you just need to fill in the IP address of the Sharp camera. Now if you do have more than one camera on the same processing unit, click on the create button at the bottom of the list here to add the second camera as well. So this is when we're adding a manual Sharp X. Now one thing that is important is we do have to have the names exactly as you see them here. So LPR camera and LPR camera 2, capital letters on the L and the C, and it is because it is case sensitive here. Again, just select the orientation and hit OK, and it'll add the unit under the list of units here as well. Now the last step is to make sure the patroller is seen by Security Center. Now if you're only going to be doing manual data transfers to and from the controller, you don't need to configure this section, but most installations will make use of some kind of wireless connectivity to take advantage of the automated software updates, the automatic hot list updates, and offload the LPR data that's been collected. Now with the vehicle in range of the network and still from the controller config tool, we're going to go to the Security Center section here, and we're looking under the Live Connection tab right here. We want to make sure the Connect to Security Center option is enabled here. Switch to the on position, and we need to enter the IP address of the Security Center server that's hosting the LPR Manager role that this unit will be associated with. So if you make other LPR Manager roles, you put them on other servers. If you have expansion servers on your Security Center system, you got to make sure that this is the address of the server that role is actually running on. Now we saw the listening port that we configured it for the LPR Manager as well, so we need to make sure that port is configured to the same thing as well. Now we can also configure the offload section from the next tab on the top of the page here. This is going to tell the controller how to get the data it collected to the Security Center system, or to how to make it available for manual transfer if you're using a USB key as well. So here we're going to choose the offload method of live transfer. If you do have it set to local file to use a USB key, you will need to set the path that is saving the information to. Now once you have the correct port configured and everything set up here, your controller should show up under the LPR Manager in a few minutes. Now there's just a few other sections I want to touch on very quickly in the controller config tool before we close it. So if you do want to rename the controller to something more relevant, you can do that from the General tab right here. And you can change the logon type as well to a different method if you need to. From the Navigation tab, you can configure the GPS unit that you're using. You can choose the mapping type in use as well. And you can also set your odometry settings here in case you're using a nav box. Now if you do need more information on installing the GPS driver, installing the bnomad files on the vehicle's PC, or calibrating the nav box, just take a look in the handbook and they've got all the detailed steps right there. Now additionally, from this point, you basically need to create the entities depending on what you're going to be using the mobile system for. Just for instance, if you're going to be using just doing strictly law enforcement for this vehicle or for this system, you may only need hot lists to look for the list of plates of stolen vehicles. So you'd go into the hot list section under LPR and configure those in there. You can create the entities. But if you are going to be doing city parking enforcement, you may need to have hot lists to search for stolen vehicles. As well, you could have to have permits to know when somebody can park in a particular place, and you might have to have overtime rules to know how long a vehicle can be in any particular spot. So each one of these, if we were going to go over these in detail for each of the 4 uses of the mobile system, we'd probably be here for another hour or so. So take a look in the handbook for more details on what needs to be done to set up those particular entity types. It's fairly straightforward. They've got a lot of good information in there, and there shouldn't be any stumbling spots there. So instead of that, we're going to spend a little more time on some of the tips and troubleshooting ideas that might be, I think, more helpful for you in the field. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is our last section. We're going to be going through the common issues and how to troubleshoot them. Our first issue here, basically, if you're having trouble finding your sharp cameras on the network, or if you don't know the IP address, if you get a unit and you're not sure what it's set to, you can use the default IP address that's available on all units. So for standalone Sharps, it's 192.168.10.100. For Sharp X units, the IP address starts at 192.168.10.1 for the first processor, and it's 192.168.10.2 for the second processor, if this unit that you ordered, particular unit, does have one. Now, a lot of problems we see are port related. So if you're not getting hits or reads, if the patroller is not getting the updated hot lists, or the offloads are not coming from the patroller, then just go back and take a look at all the ports that we had listed that need to be open on all firewalls, and just make sure that they are actually unblocked and there's nothing affecting the system from there. If you're running reports and you're not getting any results, then just take a look in the Windows event logs and take a look for any SQL events. So you might see some errors that indicate that the database is full. So as I mentioned, it doesn't automatically clean up the space for you, so if you do hit that kind of situation, you do need to lower the retention periods to make sure that we do have enough space for normal operation. If this is, we've got the example here for the 10 gigabyte default SQL Express database here. If the retention period is too low, then we might need to look into going to a full version of SQL as well, because otherwise it will just stop and not record any data for you. Now, if you're checking your reports and you don't see any context or LPR images, you might have a problem with an unnecessary Windows update that's causing a display issue. So to resolve that, just go into your programs and features and take a look at the updated components, and take a look for an update called KB2670838. Really, this isn't used by anything else in the AutoVu system or in Security Center. So just go ahead and uninstall it, and you're not going to see any negative effects by removing it. Now, if no information or video is coming from the Sharp units, you can open a remote desktop session and make sure that all the services are running. So there should be 5 services running that we've got listed here: the Genetec Sharp HAL, the logger, the plate reader, the portal, and the Genetec updater service here. You can restart these 4. You should never restart the HAL here. Now, as well, just make sure that the account that these are using has no restrictions as well. So preferably we would use an administrator account for these services. Now, once you're done here, just a quick note, just make sure you close the remote desktop session when done. Don't log off, or that's going to basically log the PC off on the Sharp system, and that will cause problems with the Sharp OS software that's used to read plates. Now, in cases where the reads aren't accurate, you'll want to double check the distance from the lens to the plate. So basically, I mentioned the in-focus length for each lens type previously. So anything before that or outside of that or past that is not going to be in focus, and you're not going to get good reads from it. So you either need to adjust the camera to a different angle that uses the correct in-focus range, or the camera may have to be returned, and you may have to get a different lens put in. Now, the different lens isn't something that can be installed in the field, as there is an intensive testing and calibration process that is done by our production team. Now, obviously, troubleshooting a hardware issue from a vehicle that's been wired internally is a big deal. So we want to do as much as we can without start yanking the cables out and stuff like that. So if you do see a problem with the context images for a camera, the first thing you should try is just swap the left and right ports from the breakout box or from the processing unit if it's a Sharp X system. That way we can see if the problem is with the camera or the cable, or with the port on the trunk unit without having to move any of the cables around inside the vehicle. So that way you can see if you swap it, is the problem staying with the cable in the camera, or is the problem following the port? And then you can tell what part needs to be repaired or replaced, or where you can further troubleshoot from there. Now this last one is more of just a little tip here. So when you're creating your permit files, they can contain many different permit types. Now if you take a look in Security Center, or if you try to edit the file, you're going to see that for the particular permit, all the types are listed there, all the particular permits are there. But don't panic, because that's perfectly normal. The parsing of the permit file for use with the different permits only happens when it reaches the patroller. So don't be worried when you see all those different ones for a particular permit. The patroller will filter that out, and it's going to use the ones that it needs there. Alright, so that's the end of the webinar today. We're going to leave the session active for about another 10 minutes or so in case you have any additional questions for Sean, Scott, or myself. Now one thing I do want to mention before closing the webinar is to keep your eyes on your email, as we will be launching a new version of the Patroller in the not so distant future. There are a few nice features to take a look at, such as the fact that the Patroller is not linked to the version of Security Center anymore. It is independent. And we're also going to have a new standalone mode for law enforcement and simple permit use, where it doesn't need a Security Center system at all. So that's some really cool new features that are coming up. I don't have a hard release date on that at the moment, but you should see an announcement for that pretty soon. Now, if you do need to review the webinar, or you know someone who would like to watch it that wasn't able to make it today, we will have the video posted on the video section of the GTAP in the next couple of days, probably by tomorrow. I don't see any reason why not there. And as I mentioned, if you have any comments or feedback on the webinar, you can put those in the GTAP forums. This is invaluable for us. I can't stress that enough, and we really like to hear any comments and suggestions. We have implemented a few that we've received in the past, and it really does help us a lot. And I'd like to thank you for the comments that we've received previously. When you do close the webinar session, you will be presented with a few survey questions. If you can just take a minute to fill out a few, drop a few notes in there, we would really like that, and just to let us know how we did today. If you do think of anything you'd like to ask, or you have any other comments, you can leave those in the GTAC Tech Talk section of the GTAP forum. What I'm also going to do is, we typically do, is go through the general questions and answers from today's webinar, the ones that Sean and Scott are fielding right now. And for any of the common questions that we think would be useful for everyone, we post those in the GTAP forum. So make sure to check that out tomorrow. As well, we put the links to the videos and the PDF version of the slides that we're using for today. So that's going to be there, like I said, tomorrow. Keep your eyes peeled for that, and for that announcement for the new Patroller as well. So that's about it. So once again, on behalf of myself and everyone at the Genetec Technical Assistance Center, I'd like to thank you very much for attending the webinar today, and we hope you all have a very good day. Thank you.